salespeople combined. And then she got a big break. She broke her leg. And it was a serious break. She was in a cast from her hip, literally, to her ankle. Doctor said it's going to be 10 months before you'll be able to go back to work. So 10 days later, she showed back up at the radio station on crutches, hobbling around, hired a driver to drive her around, but hey, it was so difficult getting in and out of cars, she knew she had to do something else. But now she's being fed with hope. She's seen what she's been able to do. She's seen the changes that have come to the inevitable question. What can I do now? People with hope get to be creative, you see. What can I do now that will enable me to remain or retain my productivity? I simply cannot fight this getting in and out of the car a dozen times a day, and sometimes the person I want to see is not even there. She started studying telephone selling and became so good at it, her productivity went up. Then the other salespeople came to her and said, tell us what you're doing. She started teaching them. Then the sales manager quit, and they petitioned management to make Pam the sales manager, and they did. Now she really got busy, and production doubled and tripled. As a matter of fact, it was with Disney radio chain, and so they started taking her to other radio stations, and productivity went up in every case. She was invited to speak, and incidentally, after a few weeks of that, they made her the vice president in charge of sales. Now here's a lady 3.5 years earlier having a psychiatrist tell her she's never going to do anything because she's going to be depressed and in this condition all of her life. And now 3.5 years later, she's the vice president in charge of sales for Disney Radio. They invited her to speak at the National Radio Broadcasters Association, and she was so effective, 18 stations invited her to come do some training in their company. Today she's a published author, internationally known speaker. Started with hope.
Please remember, the message you just heard is copyrighted material, and reproduction in any form is prohibited by law and prevented by your integrity.
I want to read something written by Dr. Joseph Sizu, and the title of it is Unsung Heroes. Let it never be forgotten that glamour is not greatness. Applause is not fame. Prominence is not eminence. The man of the hour is not apt to be the man of the ages. A stone may sparkle, but that does not make it a diamond. A man may have money, but that does not make him a success. It is what the unimportant do that really counts and determines the course of history. The greatest forces in the universe are never spectacular. Summer showers are more effective than hurricanes, but they get no publicity. The world would soon die but for the fidelity, loyalty, and consecration of those whose names are unhonored and unsung. If you're a golf fan, you know that John Daly won the British Open in 1995. What you might not know is there were some unsung heroes involved there. Corey Pavin, Brad Faxon, Bob Estes, Mark Brooks, and the caddy. The first four names were professionals who also had been in the tournament. And when Constantino Rocca had sunk that 65-foot putt to send it into the playoff, a lot of people thought, well, you know, he snatched it right out of John Daly's hand, and they wondered if John Daly would be able to recuperate and recover and respond to what had happened. And these four guys, Pavin and Faxon and Estes, came over, and Mark Brooks literally supplied Daly with a distance card measuring the exact distances from every spot on the course because Daly had misplaced his. Later, John Daly said that meant everything in the world to him. And the caddy who helped him read those tricky British greens is what made the difference. Oh, Daly gets the publicity. But the question is, had those people not been behind the scenes, would he have won the British Open? I think not. What else have you got to look at? You got to look at the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Just as a matter of curiosity, is there anybody in the live audience, and as you listen to the recording, is anybody listening to the recording who has a racehorse worth over $1 million. Okay, if you did have one, let me ask you a question. Would you keep him up half the night, letting him drink coffee and booze and smoke cigarettes and eat junk food? And if you did, how many races would he win? I think you'd probably agree he wouldn't win very many races. Would you treat a $10 dog that way? $5 cat? What about $1 billion body? Oh, but that's mine. I'm doing it to me. Well, what you got against you? Now, let's take a look there. You got to look at the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. In the last 23 years, I've read an average of 3 hours a day. I read a little bit of everything. I try to read my Bible every day and the daily newspaper every day. That way I know what both sides are up to. We need to get a balanced information. And then you got to look at the spiritual side of life. Among other things, you're going to be dead lots longer than you're going to be alive. April 28, 1986 issue of Fortune magazine did a study of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies. Over 50% of them came from lower middle class or poor families. 91% of them were either Catholic, Jewish, or Protestant. There was evidence that they were at least semi-active in their faith, meaning they got their ethics, their morals, their judgment, their values, their wisdom out of the Bible. Now, as the great LBJ would say, come, let us reason together, though that was not an original quote. What I would like for you to think about, if Stephen Covey or Tom Peters or Zig Ziglar or anybody else were to write a book, and 91% of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies said, that's the one I read right there. We all know what would happen, don't we? We know everybody would go down and get a copy of that book. You ever wonder why 65% of the college graduates, 72% of the Rhodes Scholars, 75% of the military academy graduates, 65% of U.S. congressmen, 85% of airline pilots, 85% of FBI agents, and 11 of the 12 astronauts who walked on the moon were all Boy Scouts? According to the American Scholar in the autumn 1992 issue. Well, let me see if I can explain to you why that is. First of all, Boy Scouts talk to themselves. I was a Boy Scout. Now, all of us talk to ourselves. Matter of fact, you talk to yourself on the way down here tonight. I wonder if they're going to get started before we get there. Will there be a seat for me? Where should I park my car? I hope Sally's going to be here. I mean, we do it all the time. We get home now. Where did I put those keys? Oh, what are we going to... I mean, you do it all the time. Now, I'm going to do a lot of talking about self-talking, because that is one of the keys to success. Every Thursday night in Yazoo City, Mississippi, I used to stand up there as a Boy Scout and say, on my honor. Boy, isn't that a great word? I will do my best. Isn't that a marvelous word? To do my duty. Isn't that a great word? To God and my country. To obey the Scout law. To help other people at all times. To keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Boy, that is good stuff. And when you look at this Scout law, it says a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Let me ask you a question. How many boss people have we got in the live audience tonight? You hire people from time to time. Can I see your hand? How many would like to have all of your employees with all these qualities right there? Would an individual like that have a pretty good chance of having a little more job security and employment security there? And let me tell you something else the Scouts did. Every Thursday night in Yazoo City, I say every Thursday night, one Thursday night a month we had Court of Honor. And that's where we stood up there, and we were given the merit badges for what we had been doing all during the last go-around. That was a goal we had. We knew exactly what it took to be a first-class Scout. We had the merit badges all laid out. That's goal setting. We knew what it took to be an Eagle Scout. And Eagle Scouts, ladies and gentlemen, are successful in all facets of life that goes far, far beyond the numbers of them. I tell you, if I were raising today a young boy or a young girl, I'd have them in the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts. I would have them taking that training. You know, their motto is be prepared. And you know what they say? Do a good deed every day. Understand now, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. They teach leadership. I was talking with Scout executives just this week, and they explained to me at the first camp, they have somebody teaching the young scout how to drive the stakes and, set the tent up. At the next scout camp, this kid who was learning is now teaching. That's the way you learn things. See, you hear, you forget, you see, you remember. But if you see it and hear it and do it, you understand, and you're successful at it. Do a good deed every day. Now, what's all this self-talk about? Well, here's what it's about. The most important opinion you have is the opinion you have of yourself. And the most important conversation you will have today is the conversation that you will have with yourself. These are values that make such a difference in them. But before we're through, we're going to have you talking to yourself. In the March 1990 issue of USA magazine, they have this study validated that what you say to yourself has a direct bearing on your performance. Dr. Joyce Brothers says you cannot consistently perform in a manner which is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. Where a lot of people say, well, I don't talk to myself, but interestingly enough, the same person talks to the driver of another car 3 blocks away. With considerable feeling, I hasten to add. You're not going to believe it, but some people even talk to golf balls. Go in the hole, stay in there,